Hi everyone, so if you've been actually struggling to configure ESLint with Prettier and Husky on your React and Typescript projects, well, in this particular video, we will go ahead and go step by step to explain all the dependencies, all you need to do, what you need to install, and how to configure and put all the files together in order to make sure that ESLint works perfectly with Prettier and Husky for pre-commits and Git contribution, all that stuff with React, so you can just have it with React application and of course with TypeScript and your projects right over here. So if you want to just go ahead and jump into the video quickly, so I just wanted to let you know that we're going to go into the details of how to set up ESLint with Prettier and everything, just to enforce a really a specific code style, and we're going to be using more particularly the Airbnb's code style and make sure to enforce this on TypeScript, React, and with Prettier. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we have a project in here set up using the create react app CLI, and this is just a basic project in here. There isn't much of differences or any changes made yet, just unless some dependencies installed in here. So this project was created using the create react app, using the npx create react app. Then we selected a template of TypeScript, and we just named this project. And of course, the installation went successfully, installed all the packages and everything. So you can just go ahead and get started with this. So the reason I chose create react app over just going from a basic Webpack thing is it's a lot easier. I know a lot of people would be able to get access and create a project using create react app, or willing to use the create react app other than just going to the Webpack stuff. So it's much easier for you to follow, guys, with the video tutorial on this. So first things first, what we want to do is actually set up ESLint. So this is the most complicated part, is actually setting up ESLint, because it has a lot of dependencies, it has a lot of peer dependencies, so you need to make sure you are actually stretching it together in order to be able to use it properly with the create react app or with the React application you're going to be using. So we're going to use the Airbnb as said before. We're going to be using the Airbnb style guide and everything. So we're going to be just go ahead and start just doing the configuration. So if you go to the website of ESLint in here, you're going to be finding how to initialize this. So simply I'm going to use npm instead of yarn, simply because I got the package.json in here, and because npm is a lot easier compared to yarn for most of people, most variety of people would prefer npm. Okay, so I can do npm init, and I can do ESLint config. So by putting this command, it will just, you don't need to install anything, just put that command straight through on your your terminal in here, and you will be to get in this. So this is a CLI. We'll just ask you a couple of questions for you to install ESLint and configure this. So we get check syntax only, check syntax and find problems, or check syntax, find problems, and enforce a code style. And this is exactly what we want. We want to enforce the Airbnb's code style. So click enter. You're going to ask you a couple of more questions. We're going to be using import and export because, yeah, we're going to use ES6. We're not going to use ES5 with require export. So you can do that if you have a Node.js application, but no, we're using TypeScript and we are using React as well. So I'm going to choose the first one, and you say, oh, which framework are you using? Yeah, I'm using React, so go with that. Does your project have TypeScript? Yes, we initialize our projects with TypeScript, and it's clearly there's a TypeScript config.json in here. So I'm going to choose yes again. And is this a browser or a node? This is a browser. Make sure to choose node if you're a node, but this is more like a browser kind of tutorial, but they apply both the same rules actually. And here, do you want to use a popular style guide, or you don't exactly want to? So when I use a popular style guide, and one of the most popular stuff or most popular code or style guides is the Airbnb one. You can choose Google's, you can choose a standard one, but Airbnb is just crushing it in this particular field. A lot of people enjoy using the Airbnb code style or following the guides in there. And among them is actually me. That's why I chose to go with Airbnb. And if we just go in and take a look on Airbnb's code, style guide in here, it's actually available on GitHub. It has more than 120K stars, which is crazy, right? So if you take a look on here, there's a couple of style guides inside of this. There's the JavaScript one, which we're seeing in here, which is absolutely amazing. It has a lot of stuff into it. And there is the other stuff. There's the React, the ES5 deprecated, and much more. So I'm going to be more interested into the React as well as that the JavaScript one. So the React has different rules as well. It has how to put components, how to which one to use. Do you want to use create class instead of initializing class, and yada yada yada. So we want to follow this style guide. Make sure if you want to follow a different style guide, there's the Google style guide. There's different other style guides. You can go ahead and choose that particular style guide to go and choose it. But for us, Airbnb style guide is literally the best one. So I'm gonna go ahead and follow this, and it works really well with React as well. So I'm gonna click enter, and it's gonna ask me how you want to put the config, and this will just basically create the ESLint RC config for you. And in my opinion, the best way is just to follow the JSON one. You can do JavaScript if you want to like do manipulation, but I don't really advise you. YAML, yes, a pretty good one as well, but we're more familiar with JSON, so I'm gonna go with JSON. And here it's gonna like install peer dependencies. It's gonna check, well, like is the peer dependencies installed and everything, and it's gonna ask you, this is what's gonna be installed. So clearly see there is plugin React, there's the TypeScript ESLint plugin React, the plugin reactive hooks, there's the Airbnb config, plenty more, and it's installing like the exact version as is clear in here. So make sure it's actually installing the exact versions, and this will basically install the versions that work with your ESLint and with your React app and everything. So would you like to continue? Of course, yes. Click enter, and this will start the installation for us, and you don't have to go ahead and worry about the dependencies. And this is what I really like about this CLI. It actually kind of configures everything in just like a second, and it puts all the dependencies together. Now if you go and check out the package.json, you're gonna find a lot of dependencies installed for you, but this is actually a good thing. So there is the Airbnb, there is the TypeScript ESLint parser, ESLint plugin, there is the ESLint plugin React hooks, there's plenty more. So this one is absolutely amazing. So there is a single dependencies that is missing, and this is particularly useful for the TypeScript project since it integrates like the Airbnb plus TypeScript, and it gives you the ESLint config. So make sure just to install ESLint config Airbnb TypeScript, and make sure to save it as dev, just to be, you know, like a dev dependency, whatever, and this should be installed and you should be all good to go. All right, that's pretty sweet, pretty good. Now let's go ahead and see our magical file, and this is the most important part of all ESLints, is actually the config file of the ESLint. So if you want to check the truth about ESLints or anything, the configuration is where you need to go ahead and check out all the rules or the plugins or the extended, you know, like configuration and yada. So this is actually the truth, and this is the first place. Now to get started, first things first, what I usually do with any config or any ESLint config is to go ahead and initialize this to be to use jest. So make sure just to include jest in here to be true, because most of us and React app as well uses jest for testing. So make sure to add that to the environments so it would know that, oh, we're using this. Okay, the next very much important option is the extends. So this one actually extends this current configuration from a different configuration, and this is exactly what's happening here. It's extending from Airbnb's you know, code style or React and JavaScript configuration. But this is not the best way to approach it, especially since we're using TypeScript in here plus React and everything. So there is a little bit better way to do this. So completely go ahead and discard all of those and start from the beginning, and I'm going to put like React app. So there is a config for the React app itself. There is a config as well for the React app /jest to be used as well with ESLint. There is the Airbnb one, so put the Airbnb one, and there is the Airbnb TypeScript one, so you can just do like Airbnb /TypeScript. You add that as well, and there is actually some like recommendations. So there's Prettier and all that sort of stuff. We haven't installed Prettier anyway. There's also the plugin of, so doing plugin TypeScript import. And this is as well as a very important one, or I guess it's import then /TypeScript, sorry. And yeah, so I guess this is the most one, and there's the Prettier one. I'm going to be getting into this a little bit later on, but this is what the configuration that needs to extend. This is actually the best one. So this will use Airbnb, and as well as it's going to use the React application or React app, the React application, you know, basic configuration in here from ESLint to make it all works. And as well as going to use the TypeScript imports to make sure that it imports the TypeScript stuff as well. So this will work absolutely fine. And also make sure to specify the projects properly in here. So just add a project, and you know, just give it the project like the TS configuration or the TypeScript configuration file path, which is the tsconfig.json. So make sure to specify this in order to make sure that it works perfectly well while like transpiling and compiling TypeScript. All right, pretty sweet. Now let's jump into the package.json, and we need to add another script that is gonna run the ESLint linter. So I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna just add a script, name it lint, and this will, whenever we call this, is gonna lint us the ESLint, and I'm gonna call ESLint, and I'm gonna give it dot. That means it use whatever configuration that is in the current root directory. So it's going to look for ESLint rc.json. It's going to go ahead and lint for us. And there is another really awesome command from the ESLint is actually a fix. So ESLint actually can give you errors and can fix some of the errors. So it's not all of the errors, but it can actually fix some of the errors that are fixable, maybe like double quotes to single quotes or something like that. So for this to basically work, you can just go ahead and do like lint, maybe do fix, and do ESLint -- fix, and make sure to provide the dot at the end in order to know the current config file. All right, pretty sweet. Now, if we go and open up a terminal real quick, we're gonna see like how to run ESLint. So if I do npm run lint, this will go ahead and run ESLint exclusive in here, and this will start the linting. Just go ahead and ignore this warning if you're using TypeScript like me. But there you go. We got a couple of errors already with the current code base from React because we actually included or extended a different kind of approaches or different code styles, especially the Airbnb is one. So it's actually giving us a couple of errors as well in here. And if you try to go and take a look actually on these errors, for example, there is the app.typescript in here. So this one, it tells us that, oh, line 11, column 16, you've got a code must be placed on a new line. And this is the rule that has been applied. So it actually gives you like a really awesome, simple, hinty message. It gives you like it's an error or not. It gives you the location of the line of code that is defected, and it actually gives you like the rule. So as we all know, ESLint has these particular rules. Every single rule has something like this. It uses this particular syntax, like for example, it tells React, JavaScript, whatever, then a /, then the actual rule name. So for example, this one is GSX one expression per line. So there is only, or there should only be a single expression per line when it comes to GSX. And this is a very bad one, exclusive here, because they have in multiple expressions per line. So what we can do is actually just go ahead and make this go to like one line, and this can go to the other lines, like simply like this. And if you go ahead and like clear and run the linter again, this error should be gone. So hopefully, I'm not exactly sure, but there you go. So yeah, strings must use single quotes exclusive in here. So this is from Airbnb's. So it tells us, oh, strings must use single quotes. So let's say maybe we don't like to use single quotes, right? So maybe this is not going to be working right for our project or for our case, or just like we don't like it. So let's say how do we override this rule? Because this rule is actually made from Airbnb's code style. And how do we override this? So simply just go ahead and put rules against this, and it will just like override wherever you've got rules. So inside of this objects, inside of the ESLint rc.json, you put exactly what rules you want. So whatever the rule you're going to put in here is actually going to take effect preceding the other one. So it's going to like override any rule that you currently extended, or any plugin or whatever is going to like whatever rule you're going to put in here. So for example, I want to check out the rules of like the quotes. So this is the actual syntax of rules. So for example, you put quotes, you tell it like, oh, like you want this to error or something like this if it finds it, or maybe you want this to be warning only, or you want this to be off. Like if it does find double quotes or single quotes, you want it completely off. So for me, I want this to be error, and it's actually always to have an error, because this is how you imply or how you force an actual code style, right? And here, for example, you want double quotes. So for quotes, I want this to error if it doesn't find a double quotes. If it does find a double quotes, that's good. Avoid escape in here, just like, you know, like when you have a new line, so it's completely not mandatory. And also we need to override this because now we're using TypeScript as well, so we need to override this both on the actual ESLint for JavaScript and for TypeScript as well. So we basically copy pasting this and doing the same. So this rule will override any other rule we've got already. Now if I jump back in here, I clear the console or clear the terminal and go ahead and run linting again, this should give us actually a pretty good output. It won't complain about single rows, but it will complain about double quotes as clear in here, because it says, oh, TypeScript instance quotes error, strings must use double quotes in this particular location. So for this one, it's actually all of them, or most of them actually, they're using single quotes. And this is a very, very bad approach. Most of them are double quotes, double quote, double quotes, and there's an expected line brace in here. Now, the other feature that we can really use from ESLint is actually fixing errors that are easily fixable by the ESLint CLI or by the ESLint parser. So, for example, in this case, there's 29 problems. most of them are 29 errors and 0 warnings, and there are 29 errors and 0 warnings potentially fixable with the fix option, okay? So if you run ESLint --fix, which we already had put in inside of our package.json, we can easily fix those. And most of these double quotes are fixable, which makes our lives a lot easier. So if you've got this huge code base and you want to quickly fix some like double quotes, some like line breaks, some like objects, something small and simple, you can easily go ahead and do it. So let's go and try to do this. I'm going to do npm run lints and fix. So we already put up like a script for it. So this should go into lints and put the fix for it. As you can see, it's done in here in just a couple of seconds. And if you notice that the file now has changed, so from single quotes to double quotes. Hallelujah. That's pretty nice. Check out the other one. Yes, that's a single quote, a double quote, and yada, yada, yada. So this is actually pretty good. Now, if we do npm run lints again to go ahead and check if actually we still have got any errors or whatever. So boom, we got no errors and it's done, and we got linting works, so it finds absolutely no errors in our code base. That's absolutely amazing, and ESLint can actually help you a lot to fix a larger code base. Now, let's say somebody on the team or you decided to make some changes on the code, and of course, you already set up ESLint and you know you've got this code style first and all that kind of stuff in place. So for example, this is it. This is actually a simple table using the React table. So it renders a table and everything, and it has quite some code, right? It has a lot of stuff. It has the functions, it has use effects, it has GSX, and all of those are included in the code style of Airbnb and like the recommended stuff from React and Typescript. So what we want to do in here, for example, this one has a defect, so it's a quite small issue. And if I quickly can find that, where is that? It should be an error function. So it should be so this is actually a table. There you go. So it's an editable style, sorry. And this one, for actual best practice from Airbnb side, this should be a function. So always any component, any React component that you define should be defined as a function or a class. You don't need, or you must not use like an arrow function in here, because it just like it's very bad in naming, and it's like it references with different variables, so it doesn't look like a component anymore. So for example, if you take a look on Airbnbs in here, this is a style guide from React, and as you can see in here, there's this approach. Bad for a class like that does only single rendering, so if it doesn't use other stuff or whatever. And here as well, this is bad. Relying on function name inference is discouraged. So for this one particularly, what we don't need to use any components or namings in like an arrow function. So the best way is to approach this using a function, and that's exactly what happened with us. Now if we try to go ahead and do linting, or the other way around is actually to go ahead and do npm run start. This will start the actual server, and it will start like the compilation server and the development server of the Create React app. So it will do ESLinting, and this is the actual really awesome part with Create React app. It actually puts ESLint and it puts it into the place. Curiously, we got a bunch of errors already. Some of them like are warnings for like perhaps spreading is forbidden and everything, but some of others are exclusively our errors. And it says like where is that? So we want to find this. So exclusively function component is not a function, it is not a function declaration, it's from React function component definition. So this is the rule that defines this, and we should change this. Now if I go here and go in and just like quickly change this to a function, so you remove the error function, remove the error in the top right there, like just make this look better. Control S, save it again, and security in here, boom, it's gone, and we got a way much better thing in here going on for the basic part in here. And before jumping to Prettier, I just want to let you know that I've got some rules already set up in here just to override the overall rules. For example, there's this React in GSX scope, and this rule is pretty good to put it off, because in React 17 you don't need to import React anymore, because it's actually in the global scope by the React engine. So it's actually pretty good. And a couple of more in here just to make it good. For example, the no shadow in here, I made it off, and the GSX props no spreading, which we just saw, is a warning instead of an error, because I want this just to be a warning. I don't want this just to bug me every single time I have it. Alright, now let's go ahead and add Prettier to our projects in order to make sure that ESLint works with Prettier the correct way, as well as we're going to add our custom configuration file for how to use Prettier, and we're going to install Prettier extension in VSCode. So whenever we do like Control S for saving, it will automatically or magically like save the file, and it will just like format it the correct way to work with ESLint and to follow some of like the guidelines or the code styles that we perfectly want to be applied to our files or our code base. So simply go ahead and install npm Prettier, ESLint, config Prettier, and ESLint plugin Prettier, and the Prettier itself in here. Make sure to save them as a dependency or as a dev dependency, sorry. And this should install everything that you need in order to make sure that ESLint works perfectly with Prettier, and that also that ESLint knows that there is Prettier. So it would basically like just tell you, oh, if you've got this configuration from Prettier, I'm gonna completely ignore it because Prettier is already there, it knows what it's doing, so I'm not going to be like bugging you about this particular stuff because you've already got a specific configuration from Prettier and that you know what you're doing. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is actually jump to the ESLint RC, the config of ESLint, and make sure to add Prettier here. So just plug in Prettier recommended, and this will actually apply or extend the recommended rules from Prettier and apply them to the ESLint. So that is the first part. The second part, since we already installed the Prettier plugin, so make sure to go ahead and put the plugin right over here, is actually just to put Prettier. And just a quick notice from the documentation, the guys who worked on Prettier just telling you that make sure to have Prettier the last one on the array or on the list. This way Prettier can override whatever comes before it. So anything is from React or anything, if you got a configuration like a Prettier configuration that is telling you to do something, Prettier will override whatever that says something otherwise, okay? So make sure just to have it last. This is the best experience. It will just be like working as charming as it would be, and this will be all of it for just like setting up Prettier with ESLint. The other most important part is actually to create the Prettier configuration and make sure to have it on the root project or the root directory of your project. So to add just .prettier rc, and this is the configuration. This is the basic naming convention for Prettier configuration, whatever. Just put it like this one and you're good to go. So this will be a JSON file, and this is actually my kind of like default Prettier configuration. So like the tab width, to use tabs, false, just like use spaces in indentations, single quotes first because we want to use like double quotes. Maybe this semi is a semicolon, exclusion. It just gives you like whatever hints you need, and this is a pretty good one. Maybe there's the trailing comma. You want to like, oh, all the trailing commas to be in there, and the print width in here is like when should it wrap up, like the maximum so it could wrap up or whatever. So this is my basic or my actual recommended Prettier configuration. So I want to put it in there. That's pretty good. Now the last thing to make sure that we have Prettier and we can apply this configuration whenever we save to whenever we do Control S in our like project in here. So whenever we do like something, we Control S, we let Prettier work. Exclusion here. I think I've already got Prettier working exclusion here, and it's actually formatting. If you go to the output, you're gonna see this is what it's being currently using. It uses Typescript, and this is the configuration it's using. So how can you have the same? Simply go ahead and install the extension from the VS Code. So just go to the extensions, search for Prettier, click on it, click install, you're good to go. This is basically all you need to do just to make sure the extension works. The other part is actually just go ahead into settings. So open user settings and go in here, search for formatter. It's going to find you the first one, screws in here, defines the default formatter which takes precedence over all the formatter settings, and make sure to choose Prettier. There is plenty of them, but of course Prettier is the best one for us as JavaScript developers as well. So I'm not sure if it does support, I guess it does support a couple of other languages, but mostly JavaScript is the best one for Prettier. So just go ahead and do this. And also you can just enable format on save. So like whenever you hit Control S or you go file, save, this will automatically go ahead and do like hit the formatter and runs Prettier. Sweet. Now, if you want to just like go ahead and test this in action, now what we have is like we've got a configuration that tells us, oh, do never use single quotes. So if you want to try this in here, for example, I'm going to import something and I want to import it in single quotes. Okay, so you put something in here, that's okay from VS Code, right? That looks pretty damn okay. Now, if I Control S, Prettier will run. So there you go. It turned it to back quotes in here, and this is a pretty good one. Maybe the trailing commas, this is a pretty good one as well. So if you remove a trailing comma, Control S, the trailing comma coming back. Maybe the width one as well, which is like the, take 80 characters, the tab width in here. So if you have like something like going beyond that for a particular indentation, you Control S, the indentation is going to be fixed for you. So this is what basically Prettier is going to be. It's going to be like absolutely amazing. And it works really, really well with ESLint. So if you try to run ESLint now to lint, it will automatically know, oh, you've got this Prettier configuration. So I'm going to respect whatever Prettier tells you, and I'm going to use like whatever else Prettier is not telling you. So they both going to work in harmony together just to give you the best experience for forcing the code style, for formatting your code, and for having the best code pace you ever can dream of. Basically. Also, for ESLint, mostly there are tons and tons of rules that you can very hardly just keep track of, and sometimes you don't know what a rule does. For example, what does that helly rule does, right? You don't know that. You need to go in and look up Google, maybe look up the documentation of ESLint and yada yada yada, especially if it comes from like plugins and different stuff, which is making your lives a lot harder. And it happened with me a couple of times. I don't find exactly what the rule does, and I keep searching Google, which takes a lot of time. Luckily, there's this awesome extension, VS Code extension called Linting. I absolutely adore VS Code extensions. Please drop a like if you do as well, because I adore them, of course. They're just so good. So this Linting one will give you a configuration file visualizer, and it will give you like hints, it will give you onto license, it will give you comments of what different one does, and it gives you just a basic GUI or GraphQL user interface to manage your ESLint configuration. So make sure to install this. After installing, just go back into your projects, whatever. Just go in and do like the command palette, run linting, and control or click on this. This will run linting. Screws in here. There's the ESLint JSON in here, which is the one that we have. If you click on it, it's going to tell you like what are the current active ones. For example, if you click on the active rules, these are the current active rules. And what it gives you as well, it gives you the rules from ESLint, the Typescript ESLint, the import plugin, the GSX plugin, the Prettier plugin, and the React plugin. Remember, we are using a lot of plugins in here, extending different stuff, and we are using different plugins. So it knows everything is from those plugins, and it just tells you exactly what the plugin is. If you want to search for a rule, for example, maybe I want to go, oh, I don't know what this GSX uses React. So I want to copy this. I want to go back in here. I'm going to go to React because this is from the React scope. Make sure to choose the right scope, of course, for the plugin, and just put that. So this one will prevent React to be marked as unused. Wow, that's pretty good, right? So this is actually completely off because I already have it off in here. If I change this to be error, this will automatically go ahead and change into this. But of course, when you save it, just give it a couple seconds, and there you go. I want to change it back to off because this is a very bad behavior, and you don't want to like something to uses React. So I think this should be off, and I don't want to back with this. So as I said, Linting is a pretty good extension. Make sure to go ahead and check it out, and it can give you like different stuff from best practices to active stuff to different configuration, and I absolutely adore this. Alright, so the last thing we want to do in here is actually to run linting or to run ESLint whenever we are about to do a commit. So maybe if somebody didn't run the linting before that or didn't notice, we want to force that linting. So you can force linting on CI, maybe you want to like force it in GitHub Actions and Bitbucket, so many different places. But the most practical and the best place to like force this is pre-commit script. And what I mean by a pre-commit script is whenever somebody, a developer on the project, tries to go ahead and do like, for example, git commit or commit whatever changes, a script is going to run prior to that commit. So for that particular commit to work, that script has to succeed, then it passes to that particular commit, which is absolutely amazing. And most of pro developers, pro projects, and bigger projects or like big scale projects, it uses this particular approach. So to do that, we just brought in here Husky, which is a really awesome tool that basically allows you to do or manage the Git hooks, which can allow you to add post commits, pre-commits, pre-publish, and those kind of stuff. So we want to just like mess up with the pre-commit stuff, and we want to go ahead and add this into or like our projects, the Git projects, using Husky. So as clearly you can read more about like the features and everything, but I'm going to just straight through jump into the implementation. I'm going to go to the npx husky init and npm install. So this will basically go in and do the automatic recommended. There is the manual way, which I don't recommend at all, but the basic one is to go in and use this one. So I'm going to go and copy paste this into my projects to do a pre-commit that make sure to lint our projects before you commit any changes. Sweet. So I'm going to just go in and paste that, click enter. And just like the magic of npx and npm work together to do Husky. As you can see, already created for us this Husky folder in here, and it already added some pre-commits. And if you try to quickly look at it, you're gonna just open this one, you're gonna find already a script for you. Just discard this one, it's just like to run this properly from Husky side. But this is the actual script that is gonna run pre-commit or prior to the actual commit thing. So it's gonna do npm test. We don't want npm test. You can go and edit this immediately in this, like after Husky is has configured and it works right now. Husky is completely getting started. It actually can work right out of the box. So you can go in and edit this file. You can be a professional, you can add this file, or if you want to like be a lazy dog like me, you can completely go in and use the Husky CLI to go ahead and manage and add, edit whatever commits or commands you want to do for different GitHub hooks or Git hooks, sorry. So simply what you need to do is just like npx Husky, and this will grab the latest Husky version, whatever, because you're using npx, and here you give it like what you want to do, like the command. So we want to add or set. So since we already got this one, we're going to use the sets just to update it, and I'm going to just give it the location that where our commits are hosted. So you need to use .husky. So I'm going to be .husky / and it's going to be pre-commit. Okay, so this is the hook name, and make sure this hook's names, whatever, you can read more about documentation about on Husky's website, but make sure these these names that you provide in here are following together with the actual Git hooks names, otherwise they won't work properly. Okay, so you provide the actual hook name in here, like the location and the hook name. The last line here between quotes, you can go in and provide whatever script that is going to be put in right over here to run prior to every single commit. So for us, what we want to run, if you go to our pack.json, we want to run lints. Okay, you can go and run tests, but for us, we haven't set up tests. They are basically not working. So mainly you just go ahead and do like npm run lints, and you can also go ahead and do like and npm run test to make sure that they both run before or prior the commits. But for us, we only want a lint. Go ahead and click enter, and this will just go ahead and create the pre-commit for us. If you open the pre-commit, there you go, now it works, and we have it absolutely fine. Now if we want to go ahead and commit, if you take a look on the tree in here, we got, whoa, that's plenty of changes, right? So we got so many changes, and you know what, because we already got a linter, and we don't want people or different developers just to go ahead and commit code that is not following together with the current code style, especially the Airbnb's code style. Maybe they have like some syntax issues they didn't notice, and we don't want this to go ahead and pollute the production and have production issues and yada yada yada. So how we can do this? Using the pre-commit, using our lovely Husky dog. So what we can do this is actually going to do like commit git add. For example, you want to add whatever, exclusive, we got this. And of course, whenever you're using a GUI, like the GUI from VSCode in here, it's still gonna be working absolutely fine. So I'm gonna do like git commits, adding or enforcing code style to my projects, whatever that is. So once you click enter, as you can see, it's gonna run this script first. It's gonna run ESLint first, and if ESLint is gonna pass through, which it didn't for some reason, as you can see, there is some weird issue that is going on in here. So Husky pre-commit hook executed with 1, so you can't continue. So these changes aren't committed just yet. So if you can quickly go ahead and fix those, go to report web vitals, and this is basically coming from the Prettier because we already have this in the ESLint. So it tells us, oh, they shouldn't be on the new line. So if you Control S, Prettier will successfully fix that for us, and we are in the gear part. Now just go ahead and clear all the errors, run the commit again, and now it should pass. ESLint is completely fine and it's completely successful. It doesn't find any issues, only warnings. And there you go. So in here we're gonna find like enforcing the code style to my projects, and it all has been successfully committed to our files. So as in here we got different stuff in here that are like the new changes or whatever, but we got the commit passed because ESLint has actually passed and everything is working fine with Prettier, with code styling, with Husky, pre-commits, and all the sort of stuff. So that was it actually, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. That was actually a little bit complicated and deep dive into how to use ESLint plus Prettier plus Husky for like pre-commits, and to have the best projects you can probably ever imagine, and just like have all this setup with React plus TypeScript. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you guys like this particular video tutorial. I'm pretty sure this setup in here, sometimes if you just follow documentation, you're gonna find it super hard to follow along. So I tried to go ahead and put that video together for you guys to go and understand what is exactly and how to set it up and all the things behind the scenes. So if you guys enjoyed for this one, catch you all hopefully in the next ones.